Missouri annual opponents. How about Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M? What's up with that?
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball, with frankly just almost more to talk about than I can handle today. So we're just going to jam it all in here. A big-time pickup for Dennis Gates on the basketball court. I've got injury updates for you. Just a ton to get to, and yes, crybaby Shane Beamer as well. First, I want to remind you today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. And as originally reported here by Chris Lowe over at On3, it sure appears like Texas A&M is going to be Missouri's third annual opponent. The long assumption has been Arkansas and Oklahoma were going to be two of Missouri's annual opponents. Well, now it's Texas A&M as the third one. I got to say, this is surprising to me, and I think, well, most of the people around the Missouri beat. And indeed, by the way, PowerMizzou.com, by the way, on their Twitter feed, they confirmed this report as well. So it doesn't sound like there's a real serious need for any of us to tune into that hour-long special on the SEC network tomorrow. And ultimately, I really am genuinely disappointed. Not just surprised, but I'm disappointed. And it's not really so much about Texas A&M per se, who Missouri does have some history with, just not a lot of real recent history so much that is all that memorable, if I'm being completely honest with you. Still, if it's going to be a long road trip, by the way, as it is, Texas A&M just not particularly high on my list. I think I would even prefer the Texas Longhorns in this scenario. Honestly, I'm not sure how much, if at all, really, the old saw about Missouri and Texas, that high school recruiting connection, I'm not sure how much that really matters at all. Frankly, I don't think it does matter at all anymore. Seems like a holdover thought from the Pinkel and sort of pre-NIL era. So I don't know if there's any real recruiting advantage here either. So to me, South Carolina, a team that Missouri, hey, there's an actual cup there. Yes, the Mayor's Cup, going to be in purgatory here for a few seasons, it looks like. So to me, this is just a bummer. And even Chris Marler over at Locked On Gamecocks, my colleague, was just on this show saying that he thought it was going to be Missouri and South Carolina. So I have to say, 2 out of the 3 of all of these that have leaked here, the annual opponents, it seems like 2 out of 3 of them make quite a bit of sense. And then that third one, it's almost like they threw some names into a hat here, I have to say. A little bit of some strange selections there, but it seems like the SEC was more concerned about maybe schedule balance, at least trying to find some semblance of schedule balance, than they are necessarily about having maybe the most interesting 3 opponents for the fans per se, because as usual, well, the fans, we come last, it would certainly seem. But regardless, not the end of the world, just a slight disappointment here from Missouri. And again, these are annual opponents, not permanent. These are going to be revisited here in 4 years or so. So I guess we can all look forward to 2029. We've got another every 4-year thing along with the Olympics and a presidential cycle. But you know what? Speaking of, it wasn't a lot, not trying to complain too much about that deal. Obviously a little bit disappointed. But speaking of complainers and speaking of South Carolina, how about good old Shane Beamer? Man, he just always finds something to complain about seemingly every time he comes to Columbia, Missouri. And a shout out to Mizzou football's social media team who put out a video. I had sort of forgotten about Shane Beamer recently complaining about, this press room sure is pretty crappy here after Missouri knocked him around on Faurot Field for a few hours, him and his ball club. I had forgotten about that, to be honest, but the Missouri social media team did not put out a hilarious video showing, a black and white shot of said crappy media setup there for Coach Beamer, put some ominous music behind it. It was a little bit self-deprecating, too, so I thought that was really hilarious. Genuinely funny move there. But what I thought was even more funny, quite honestly, was Shane Beamer's quote after the game where he was asked about Missouri linebacker Josiah Trotter, who was tremendous in the ball game, obviously transferred from West Virginia this past offseason, and flippantly, Shane Beamer couldn't help himself. He just said, yeah, he was great. They paid him a lot of money, that type of deal. Wow. Okay, coach. Felt a little passive-aggressive, but honestly, I'm just laughing that off as a Missouri fan after you just took that 9-point loss on Faurot Field, and, Josiah Trotter was a huge part of that. To be honest, I thought that was, if I were a South Carolina fan, that would actually kind of make me mad. Like, what are you talking about, dude? This is the NIL era. Get used to it. If you're going to cry poor on me, then maybe we need to find another coach who can get the big boosters excited, because that is part of the deal at this point. If you're going to sit here and be like, oh, wow, they paid money for their inside linebacker. That I thought that was truly pathetic, to be honest with you. And I've always kind of wanted to like Shane Beamer, truly, because, I always have had tremendous respect for his father, Frank Beamer, longtime legendary coach at Virginia Tech. But man, just the constant whining from Shane Beamer makes him honestly seem even smaller than he really is. But you know what? Enough about South Carolina and Shane Beamer. We got that dub. It's on to the next one. And of course, Cayden Green did sit out that Missouri-South Carolina game. The starting left tackle for Missouri was replaced by Jayven Richardson, who Eli Drinkwitz had a ton of praise for following the game. I just mostly didn't notice Jayven Richardson a whole lot, which generally for offensive linemen, that is a positive thing. And really, I thought for the most part, Missouri's pass protection seemed pretty good. And obviously the run game was excellent. And Eli on Jayven Richardson, by the way, said he thought that he was a testament to what being a great teammate is all about. The dude took every snap as a starter in the spring in 3 weeks of fall camp, and ultimately we made a tough decision to slide Caden out. And Jayven could have done a lot of things differently. He could have pouted. He could have been disappointed. He could have come in and demanded a trade. Well, I guess they can't demand a trade. He could have done a lot of other stuff, and he didn't. What he did was every day he went in and went to work, and then he actually is our swing tackle, so he's our backup right tackle too, so he learned multiple positions, and, ultimately we have a ton of confidence. So just a lot of praise there, not only for Richardson's play, but just his general attitude and being ready to go when needed. And specifically talking about Kaden Green, by the way, and his injury, Eli Drinkwitz said that Green was hurt in Wednesday's practice, then participated in the walkthrough on Thursday, got an MRI, decided the best plan was to get a minor procedure on Friday. He should return in, quote, as soon as he possibly can, says it's likely 3 to 5 weeks. So obviously Drinkwitz not sharing with us what the actual injury there is. I've got a couple guesses for you. Number one, I'm going to say turf toe. I'm going to guess he probably has turf toe because there's become minor procedures that have become popular with turf toe that seem to fit that timeline, possibly a tightrope ankle procedure, a high ankle sprain type of deal. That would be my second guess. Doesn't really matter, though, honestly. What it means is he's going to be out for a few weeks, but this is not a season-ending injury, so expect Caden Green to see him back before the end of the year, but obviously maybe a month or so without him. And Dennis Gates and his basketball program have secured another top 100 commitment, according to 24/7 Sports. In fact, the 71st best player in the entire country. But I have to say, for a top 100 player, this is kind of an unusual one. I'll explain coming up here in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about the game cap, because a quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at the Mizzou KU game. Well, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it's obviously the game. And these aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans like me wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back in the day, too. When you use code Locked On, you'll get your vintage hat, just like the one I'm wearing right now, for $16.99. And once again, to me, for a guy with a little bit bigger head, 7 5/8, that's generally my hat size, I think these snapbacks just fit a little bit better, too. So head to thegamecaps.com, grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. And welcome aboard to Aidan Chronister from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Dennis Gates, his latest recruit. Third player in this 2026 class. Missouri recently got Tony Bryant, who's a top 25 caliber forward, a real athletic type that, well, if he figures out an offense at all, is going to be an absolute stud. Then you've got Jason Crow, the number 3 rated player in the entire country. Kind of a combo guard who, in my opinion, maybe the best scorer in this entire class. At the very least, he is such a good scorer. He is going to come in and I think start immediately for Missouri. Not this coming season, of course, the season after that. Well, adding to this mix, Aidan Chronister, 6'7", a tall shooter, I would say, and a guy who can absolutely stroke it for sure. So I think he fits great with those other 2 players, by the way. I think all of these guys' skill sets, not only do I like all of them individually, I think they're going to mesh well together. Their different skill sets they complement each other well. The one thing I will say about Chronister is, for a kid who is a top 100 player, ranked 71st, by the way, in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, kind of a weird offer list. Wake Forest, the biggest name there. Also, Arkansas State and SLU were in there as well. Didn't appear, by the way, that the hometown Arkansas Razorbacks, or anybody else in the SEC for that matter, were all that interested in Aidan Chronister. So what's up with that, as they say? Well, honestly, I don't really care, because, simply put, Dennis Gates likes him. That's good enough for me. And Dennis Gates and his staff seem to know a thing or two about shooting. That is for darn sure. And when you look at Chronister's game, he's not just a catch-and-shoot guy. He can shoot it off the dribble. And even though he's 6'7", unlike myself, who takes an hour and a half to get off a three-point shot, Chronister has a quick release. He really does. So that's encouraging. And again, I think this is a great fit with who Missouri already has in the class. And by the way, one more thing on Chronister, just for comparison's sake. Actually, Tristan Reed, who Missouri is very much after, is a good comparison here. Remember, I said Chronister 71st in the country, Tristan Reed 69th in the country. So just 2 spots, they're basically ranked in the same spot for all intents and purposes. And yet Tristan Reed's offer list looks a lot more like you would expect for somebody ranked that high. Ohio State, along with Missouri, Michigan State, Iowa, Mississippi State. Again, it's looking like Ohio State and Michigan State, probably Missouri's biggest competition right now for Reed, though it seems like the Tigers probably in the driver's seat. Regardless, again, the point here is that is a strange lack of offers for Aidan Chronister. Again, especially the hometown Arkansas Razorbacks and John Calipari not interested. Again, that's a bit of an eyebrow raiser, but I tend to trust Dennis Gates and his staff's evaluation, especially of shooters. I think this kid is going to be just fine. I do think that's just an interesting thing to bring up. And again, compared to somebody like Tristan Reed, a very similar prospect just in terms of overall rankings, if not skill set, well, his Reed's just looks a lot more like you would expect. Just something to keep in mind and monitor there, I suppose. Now, it wasn't all a bed of roses on Saturday for Missouri, of course. And in fact, Eli Drinkwitz seems pretty annoyed with the back end of the defense at the moment. He says, quote, "When we watch the tape tomorrow, I'm going to be on some secondary coaches' rear ends because this is getting ridiculous how porous our pass defense is, and that's got to get shored up in a hurry. And whatever we got to do to fix it, we're going to have to do it. But there's way too many holes in our zone coverage. We got bad eyes in the backfield. I'm not going to get negative. Not going to get negative, but yeah, that's got to get corrected. And I think maybe the thing that stood out, that what Drinkwitz said there, we got bad eyes in the backfield. And I've seen that a few times, not just this season, but last season as well, when in particular Missouri safeties will get caught worrying too much about the running game and not enough about the passing game, in my opinion. I thought this showed up a few times, not just on the back end on those deep balls, but I also thought in play action, Missouri got caught up, again, having bad eyes, looking too much in the backfield instead of playing your responsibility and your zone in the defense, for example. So I thought that was a very valid point by Eli Drinkwitz there for sure. Really, the Missouri pass defense, or lack thereof, I guess you could say at times, does start to get maybe even a little bit more concerning when you go back and watch the game and see a couple times where South Carolina just missed some huge passing plays down the field, especially in that first quarter. I believe the first drive for South Carolina. Missouri very fortunate to avoid a huge passing play there by Lenora Sellers. But when you consider that obviously half of it is coverage, half of it is your pressure up front as well. Well, the Tigers racked up 27 pressures on Saturday night. That's a huge number, and it's a good thing they did because there was definitely at least a couple times I can think of that Missouri got just enough pressure to affect the throw that, again, may have been real damage on the back end if not for that pressure. So the Tigers had 38 total pressures in 3 games entering the game. So a little more than 11 about 12 a game, let's say. So 27 in one game against their best competition, you would assume so far in South Carolina. Really, really impressive. But you know what? I do have to say, watching college football this past weekend, maybe Kansas is actually better than South Carolina. Because I'll say this, we're not rooting for Kansas, but when Kansas plays well the rest of this season, it does make Missouri's win against the Jayhawks and Missouri's resume obviously look a little bit better. And Kansas won against West Virginia easily, pounded them 41-10 this past Saturday. And by the way, had 284 yards rushing. Not so much against Missouri's rushing attack, rushing defense. By the way, Jayhawks now with the third best odds to win the Big 12 according to S&P Plus. Again, I have no desire to give Kansas any credit here, but this just goes to show you this Kansas win, the longer, if the Jayhawks continue to play good football here like they are right now, Jalen Daniels continues to stay healthy, that's going to be a win that looks pretty good at the end of the season. And coming up, I want to talk about Bo Pribula's secret weapon that he has been using early and often here in a Missouri uniform. Also, Luther Burden not only scored his first touchdown in the NFL yesterday, he did something that no Missouri receiver has done in the NFL in a decade. So let's talk about that here in just a little bit. But first, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And if you get that bonus, I'm telling you, just bet $5-10 every single game. You're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to stay alive all season. And that's how you really have fun. Just stay alive. Bankroll management, people. I know. You said it with me. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And also, this episode is brought to you by Square, and your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. And there are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. And I got to say, on game days, Oh, I got to go to my favorite burger joint in town. And, well, it's so easy when you can play with Square. And as a small business owner myself, we use Square all the time to get all of our transactions and give you, yes, that fine dancing that you've come to know and love. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be glad you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Remember Bobby Knight, of course, the Indiana legendary basketball coach, when he called games for a little while, man, he was obsessed with the shot fake, wasn't he? Well, Bobby Knight would absolutely love Bo Pribula because he has figured out that pump fake, that pass fake, whatever you want to call it. Whatever it is a powerful, powerful weapon in a scramble situation, especially when, well, in the world of roughing the passer penalties, that type of things, guys can't they feel like they have to hit you in the chest and not just be balls to the walls, reckless abandon, that type of deal. Man, especially with as athletic as Bo Pribula is in the open field, those pump fakes that he has, he's used that, gosh, of course, on that first touchdown run he had in week 1, famously used it to run about 40 or 50 yards or so, it seemed, but he used it very effectively against South Carolina as well, and I think that's one thing old Patrick Mahomes figured out that a lot of people are copying is, yes, when you're scrambling, don't just run in a straight line. Use that pump fake. Get them off balance, that type of deal. That is a super powerful weapon that Bo Pribula has figured out. By the way, just quickly here, Luther Burden got his first NFL touchdown, by the way, a wide open flea flicker, which had to make Eli Drinkwitz happy. There's no bigger fan of the flea flicker than Drinkwitz. Burden, by the way, with 3 catches at least in that ball game, I know he had more than 100 yards because he was the first Missouri receiver with a 100-yard receiving game in the NFL since 2015 when Jeremy Maclin had 3 that season. And believe it or not, Dorial Green-Beckham had a couple 100-yard games that season as well. By the way, Nick Rodriguez was really good last week. Speaking of this Missouri defense, Nick played, I thought, probably his best college game as a Tiger. He's really started to emerge here this season. Sellers, by the way, Lenora Sellers, the Gamecock quarterback, fortunate that Rodriguez didn't pick off one of his passes at one point in the second half. Sellers really does have all the physical talent in the world, just needs a little bit more experience. Should he maybe stay in school for another year? Well, oh wait, I guess the Gamecocks don't actually pay anyone. My mistake there. And by the way, on the Missouri special teams unit, there's something that could use some work. Hey, Kevin Coleman's looked good as a punt returner. The kick returns have left a lot to be desired. Number one, I'm ready for Sean Terry back there. Let's put a little bit more explosion back there, in my opinion. And I just didn't understand what Missouri was doing on kickoffs against South Carolina either. Somebody's got to explain to me the drop kicks. Am I the only one who is curious about that? Maybe I just missed it. Maybe I missed the explanation in the question there post-game, but I couldn't have been the only one who thought that was a little bit odd, right? Why drop kick it? Or if you're simply trying to avoid an explosive return man for South Carolina, by the way, it was not Vakari Swain, I don't believe, who was back there on kickoff returns. He's the Gamecock punt returner, is the corner for the Gamecocks. But if you're going to do that, and basically kind of hand them the ball at the 35-yard line or a little better every time, well, why not just kick it out of bounds? Because as we saw, when you kick it out of bounds, it's only a 10-yard penalty. A touchback gets it at the 25. To me, getting it to 35, that's actually not enough of a penalty. And if you're that worried about the Gamecocks return unit, then just kick it out of bounds. Give it to them on the 35-yard line. Again, in my opinion, that should be the 40 like it is in the NFL, but I don't know. College football is determined to make kickoffs the most boring play in the universe. So I do have to give Missouri something. They definitely spiced it up and made it interesting with those drop kicks, but I'm not sure I've seen a drop kick since Doug Flutie did one for the Bills and drop kicked an extra point back in the day. Or maybe that was, actually I think it was for the New England Patriots now that I think about it. But regardless, I don't know. I don't need Missouri doing on kickoffs what 42-year-old Doug Flutie was doing as sort of a lark in his last season in the NFL. That's just me. But you know what? Hopefully this show has been a bit of a lark today. God, I'm good at these transitions. But you know what? It's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff. Yes, with Gary Patterson, Jesse Holly, all of our experts, a college football preview that frankly only Locked On can pull off. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And I'll catch you all Tuesday again right here on Locked On Mizzou.